You one-on-one with an agent in a sidebar, I think that's coming to an end. You looking at the code in a text editor and having it at the bottom or in the side, and it sees like which files you have open, and then you do this ping pong thing. This is not the future.
For the 1% of developers that want to be most ahead, that want to be coding like how everyone else will be in the future, they only need to do the last 20% of their work in the editor. And we think we can get that to 10% or 1% or something. For what we created AMP to do, which is to explore the frontier of software development, we will be killing our editor extension. The AMP VS Code extension and cursor and so on, we're going to be killing it. We think the sidebar is dead. And let's walk through why.
Hello and welcome to Raising an Agent, episode 10. I'm Thorsten, and here with me is Quinn. Hi, Quinn.
Hey, Thorsten. All right, we shipped deep mode. There's a lot more stuff coming, but how have you been using deep mode? You fall in love with some of these new models.
Yes, maybe a big fault of mine, but yes, we shipped deep mode last week. So deep mode is a new agent mode in AMP. For those who don't know, we only have 3 now. So we don't have, smart mode. That's the one we had. The main mode with Opus 4.5 right now. Rush mode, which uses a really fast model. Let me get this wrong. We're experimenting with other models, but I think it's Haiku right at the moment in rush mode.
That's right.
Yes. So fast, less smart model for if you want to rush some task. And we shipped a new mode called deep mode, which is powered by GPT-5.2 codecs, medium, quite the name. And we shipped it because I think that 5.2 codecs is amazing in a lot of ways. It's really smart, funny, but it's really smart. It can write some really good code, and it's really thorough in how it researches and goes off and finds stuff. And we called it deep mode because we realized, well, the strengths of, the model isn't good at this, hey, set up my Z shell RC and then do this and reload this, like these back and forth super fast assistant tasks that you might use Opus for. It's kind of too lazy for this, where it sometimes goes like, you should run these things, or it researches for too long. But if you have a well-scoped problem or big task, or you want to find something out, you can send this thing off and say, like, go and do this, and it will go, and you will need to switch tabs and do something else while it goes. And then it will research in a very thorough way and often come back with incredibly impressive results. And so we put this in another mode, and I think it's important to say it's a different mode because it's not a model selector. It's a different way of working or engaging with AMP or using AMP. And we kind of tweak the tools towards this too. Like, we don't have it, but imagine you had like this user feedback question tool that some harnesses have. I don't think that would be something for deep, because deep you want to send off and then check in later, like 60 minutes later, 45 minutes later. And
yeah. So, okay, when we are trying a new model, we try it out internally a lot. How did we get to the point where we realized, actually, this is a model that needs to be used in a different way? It's not a replacement for the way that you work with Opus.
I think when I first tried it, and I mean, there's been a lot of chatter, right, about 5.2, like Peter Steinberger, famously, he loves it. Theo loves it. And they all say it's a different beast. And we tried it when it came out, and it just didn't feel like it fits the way I work. So then I gave it an honest try again, anticipating that I have to adjust my expectations. And what we realized is that, you don't look at the assistant anymore. And a lot of the stuff that we've been saying about, like, this is how you should prompt, this is what we should do, and the feedback loops and all of that, like, a lot of that doesn't apply to it, but the results don't lie. So it's kind of like they both might get to the same results. And I can't even say that deep mode is always better or always writes the better code, but they get to equally good results, but different. Like Opus is trigger happy. It wants to run stuff. It wants to get back to you and ask you. And deep mode just goes off and does something. And when you see this in action, you realize, oh, like this is another way to get to these results, but we need to treat it differently. And I think a lot of people, internally like realize this, and then Nico and Hitesh started working on deep mode and make it, optimized for this mode of working. So basically, we don't say make it work exactly like Opus, make it work like an assistant, but make it work like a thing you can send off and it does stuff for you.
Yeah. So a lot of times when you hear people talking about, oh, this model is better than this other model, it's a lot of people who were stuck on a model, they're used to it, and then they tried a new model, but with the same kind of prompts and expectations that they were having with the old model. And that doesn't work. And one of the things with agent modes is we're trying to get you out of that mindset so that if you're in some other tool, you just choose GPT-5 codecs from a drop-down menu, it's not really putting you in a mindset to do something different. And we've done a lot of different things. We've tried a lot of different things, and we're trying to educate. One of the funny things, though, is by the time we or other people start to figure out what is the right way to work with a model, then there's a new model that comes out and everything is thrown up in the air. And I don't expect that pace to slow down.
Yeah, I think mode, if I could, I would make it so that if you change the mode, the app would look completely different and feel different. Like imagine in smart mode, you have this type of font, you switch to deep mode and suddenly, different type of font and your prompt length is like at least 100 words or something. Like it should feel like text message versus writing a letter or something. And basically that's, it's hard to pull this off, but that's the feeling that it should be, that you're doing something else. Like you're talking to a different model for different type of tasks, and you need to approach it differently. And it's hard. This is the challenge with all AI products. It's all text boxes and it's really hard to convey like expectations in a text box when it's all just a text box,
Yeah. So. And even if you don't use these things right, they still are so magical and they often work.
Yeah. But yeah, that's deep mode. And I think we hinted at this. We recorded the last episode 2 weeks before, so a week before deep mode. And we said, the subtitle was "The System is Dead, Long Live the Factory." And that was already based on deep mode in some, because we were playing around this. And once we started playing around with deep mode, it became obvious that, oh, wow, like if the models are going into this direction where they go for longer and further, finally living up to the promises, let's say, of the last 2 years, then the assistant model of having the
make it sound as though these things aren't amazing. It's like, it's not that they haven't delivered on promise. It's like, oh, these are wondrous things.
They're amazing, but I think last
you're just already so inured to the amazingness.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess my point also is that I said the opposite things of what I'm saying right now. Like my view changed. Like last year on this very podcast, I said like Pro Tool for power users. Like it's a drill and you have to hold it right and you have to kind of make sure you prompt it and back and forth and feedback loops, like a lot of like how you manage these models. And I'm not saying that this is dead, but I'm saying that 5.2 Codex shows the promise of, wow, like now you write a proper prompt, then off it goes and it comes back with a surprising result. And I think that's a trend of like, imagine if Codex 5.5 whatever is just like 10% more accurate in what it, like how reliable it is in doing this. Then I think you have to wonder, like, why only have one running at a time? Why watch it in a sidebar? We'll get to this in a second. Like, it just doesn't feel like the thing you would do, like start acing tasks that take 45 minutes and then just watch them while they do stuff, even if they don't need your input. So I think that's, how we started with like the assistant is there, long live the factory, because you want to kick off many of these and optimize for running them a long time. And finally, the models are catching up to this idea of, hey, you can just spawn a swarm of these or something, or different tasks, and check out them once they're done. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So let's talk about what we've done in our code base and how you're changing how you prompt to work with deep mode. What's different?
Um, I mean, I'm quoting you. I think we kind of optimized a lot of our dev tooling for agents over the last few months, which is something that I guess everybody's doing. But basically, um, we added more skills for how to do things in our code base that the agent can then use and do stuff. Like the simple example, I added a skill so it knows about how we release our web server and how we release our clients. So if I have a bug, I can ask like, help me figure out why this wasn't deployed, or what's the current live version. It then loads the skill and knows how to do it. And it's just, the more you accumulate of these skills, the more it knows how to navigate in stuff, and you don't have to prompt it that much or provide that
Yeah. It
stuff.
feels like skills are the solution to this general problem of I want to give the agent a little bit more help in this common thing I do, and it's really stuck. It's stuck a lot more than other things. They're not completely the same, but like MCPs or custom commands or custom sub agents or
Yeah.
all these other things. It feels like skills that as an abstraction has really stuck.
Yeah. It's so, I don't know who tweeted it, but somebody just said something like, like if you do something with the agent where you say like, use the GH tool to analyze the build failure on GitHub and then do blah blah blah, and you walk it through, how to solve a problem with your tooling. At the end of a conversation, you can then often say, now build me a skill. Like, take everything you learned about this solving this problem and put it in a skill. And we have in AMP a built-in skill that's good for creating skills. So it can load the skill and then figure out where to put the skill and how to write it. And that's been huge. Like, I mean, let's start at like the one end of the spectrum. So the low level spectrum, we have a tmux skill, right? And that basically explains how to use tmux in our code base. And that means here's how you can test the CLI using tmux, like our amp TUI. And it, for example, has something in it that is not 100% reliable, but it often helps, which is our TUI needs to be killed with double control C. You have to hit it twice, and the agent always got it wrong. So then I put it in this skill. It's like, if you're testing the CLI, remember to do double control C. And it's just that stuff accumulates and compounds, and then you don't have to prompt it. So now when you ask it to test the CLI, you can see it often, oh, there's something running double CC. Or, or I this is the command I run, and then the output is here. Or that's on one end of the spectrum. Then we have skills about G-Cloud stuff, which is funny, like how to use our G-Cloud command to be hosted on GCP, Google's cloud. And I talked with Tim about this yesterday, where we said, no, 2 days ago, where we said, man, like, I never loved G-Cloud. Like, it felt, like the CLI feels hard to use, and you would use like a different log viewer and, Prometheus and Grafana and whatnot because they're easier to use. And now with agents, does not matter that much. I'm just like, here's an error message. The user said this request failed. And then I say to the agent, use G-Cloud and figure out this, get the logs. And then you can see it rip through G-Cloud commands. And it's, we'll talk about this, but it made me think like, what is software? Like, if you build a web dashboard and then I can give my agent a skill that says, here's how you use G-Cloud, and then it figures out how to do the most complex log analysis queries, like, why would I go to the web?
Yeah. And the G-Cloud CLI is amazing. I
Yeah, it's super
regularly
powerful.
see it,
Yeah,
run
yeah,
through
yeah,
logs and our audit logs. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, so one of the things with AMP is it's connected to ampco.com and you have all these shared threads. So I want to actually show something that will be shipping soon, which is the ability to see what are all of the skills that you've been using on your team.
Nice.
So it's just looking through your threads. It's a little slow, so it's only showing the last day for our team, but these are the most common skills we're using. And even just looking at this, we've been able to see, oh, hey, this G Cloud skill, it's only been used, one time in the last day, but other people are using the
In the
BigQuery skill a
last
lot.
day, I was gonna say, oh yeah, the BigQuery skill is,
It's amazing.
man. I think maybe I don't know. It's sensitive data, obviously, but I think this would be the biggest argument to say stop copy and pasting stuff to and from ChatGPT. It's like this is it, man. Like you ask it, hey, how many users use this feature, blah blah blah, use BigQuery, and it just goes off. It finds out what the name of the tables are, and it queries stuff, and it's really good at SQL. Yeah.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah.
people use Ralph? It's just Tim, no?
Let's see. 23 times today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Code review. That's interesting. Yeah, but
So we'll ship this.
Yeah, so skills is skills. That's one end of the spectrum. The other thing to mention is, we optimized we have one command now to run all of the tests called pnpm test, and it's very easy to remember, and it uses cached results, so you can run it 5-6 times in a row. And if you hadn't changed anything in one specific package, it doesn't run the test. And
Oh, shit. So this sounds like Bazel. We must have used Bazel, this big, hulking, heavyweight thing that's perfect for this, because there's no way we could write like a caching test harness on our own, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think some people are going to hate me for this, and I have one specific person in mind who's going to hate me for this, but I feel like agents are not a confirmation that these complex build tools and reproducible builds will win. Like, it's just, I think they're really good at using dumb tools. Like, you don't need heavy, crazy tools. And PNPM test, it's just, you say, this is the one command you should always run, and the command itself then will give you the output and whatnot. But that's it. And if you don't need like a lot of the Bazel stuff around it and like the verbose output and whatnot.
Yeah, certainly not at our scale. We have 19 people coding on AMP.
That's true.
19 people at AMP.
Yeah.
And probably pretty good at Starlark, so that would be nice if you are in Bazel. But we, Tim Culverhouse on our team built it, and he also optimized the hell out of a lot of our tests and our svelte check. And this brought us to an interesting thing. As we were making our code base into more of factory and getting reliable feedback loops, you might think that the human dev experience would not degrade. After all, it should be strictly better. But actually, in order to get a really good command that runs svelte check for our SvelteKit web app, to make that really fast, Tim basically built a whole new implementation of svelte check in Zig. It's called Svelte Check. It's open source. You can see it on the AMP code GitHub. And it turns out it actually did regress using SvelteKit in VS Code for us a bit. And we had this difficult decision, which is more important, to preserve the human dev experience or to preserve the agent dev experience. And I think about half of us are in VS Code and the other half are in like NeoVim and stuff like that. So the people at NeoVim were like, what do you mean? I don't care about the VS Code dev experience. And we did end up briefly rolling it back eventually to preserve the human dev experience. But we are willing to really regress the human dev experience. And it's making me feel like I don't want to stay in VS Code with all of my extensions that I've been using for like the last 7 years since I switched from Emacs, if that means that it's going to slow us down in making our code base better for the agents. And that's this way in which once you have an agent in your code base, if you optimize the code base for it, then things can move faster because it's not just the human thing stays the same. That actually degrades. And then it's more of an incentive to get away from the editor. And then that gets you into a workflow where you can do a lot more parallelism if you're not in the editor and so on. So it's a snowball. And we see it starting in our own code base.
I mean, it's as simple as for many, 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 many years, it's, oh, the dev tooling is broken, broken glass theory, like, oh, broken window theory, like, don't let it get too broken. This is fix it as soon as possible. Dev tooling is so important. The best companies have the best dev tooling. And what they mean is that for a human, it's the best tooling. But now, basically AMP, I don't know how many decades combined in experience we have in dev tooling, but it's a lot. We're like, okay, this is not ideal for humans, but it does not matter that much because the agent is calling this command a lot of times. And that's huge, that you think, I don't care really about this and how readable it is, but the agent can read the log file better than I can. It's very,
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
got to be willing to let go in order to
Yeah.
get the benefits of an agent.
Yeah.
And for
So
us, it's an interesting question. Who are we building for? We've always wanted AMP to be on the frontier. We say everything is changing. And
yeah.
now that it seems like there's a lot of things that if you do those things in your code base, you're going to be able to do a lot more with an agent. We want to
Yeah.
exclusively make AMP for the people willing to put in that investment. And probably 99% of teams and code bases won't be willing to do that yet. We want to explore
Yeah.
what happens with that 1% if they do. And if
Yeah.
you put an agent in a code base that was built for it, what can you do? And we don't know, but we think that you can go a lot further than what
Yeah.
you can do today.
So should we get to the big thing and say everything we just talked about, the summary of it is, or the theme is, I guess we said it last time, the assistant is dead, long live the factory. But what we meant last time and what we said last time is, well, you need to optimize your code base for these agents and they go longer and more autonomously. But we didn't really focus on the assistant part that much and didn't spell it out. But basically, and you can say the line, but basically I'll start here and I say, I think the time of you one-on-one with an agent in a sidebar going back and forth, I think that's coming to an end in with
Yeah.
programming. I think you looking at the code in a text editor and having it at the bottom or in the side, and it sees like which files you have open, and then you do this ping pong thing. That's exactly what we did for the last year, but it feels like this is not it anymore. This is
Yeah,
done. This is
that's right.
not the future. So
And when we say coming to an end, what we mean is for the 1% of developers that want to be most ahead, that want to
yeah,
be coding like how everyone else will be in the future, for that 1%,
yeah,
they only need to do the last 20% of their work in the editor. And that's with their current workflow. And we think we can get that to 10% or 1% or something. So we're not
yeah,
trying to build something for everyone, but for the people that use AMP and for what we created AMP to do, which is to explore the frontier of software development, we will be killing our editor extension, the AMP VS Code extension and cursor and so on. We're going to be killing it. And we're going to be killing it because we think it's no longer the future. We think the sidebar is dead. And let's walk through why and then
yeah,
when. Because
yeah,
it's also kind of funny. So why? We think that that mode of working limits your ability to parallelize your work with agents, which is the best way you're going to get more out of agents over the next few months. It holds you back. Second, it's a crutch. When you're in the editor and you're working in the sidebar, you, the human, the slow human, he's got better things to do anyway, are the feedback loop. You might not know it. You might not realize it. It might be in smart mode and it's doing incredible things, but you still are the feedback loop. And we want to get you out of that role. We want you to be proactive about setting up the automated feedback loops, the test commands, the build commands, the skills, the so on, so that you don't need to do that. That's another way how you're going to get so much more out of an agent over the next few months. And there's a third thing too, which is AMP is not trying to be for everyone. And if we do not make this kind of change boldly, then a month from now, 2 months from now, not only are we going to be doing all of you a disservice by letting you, through our product, use a way of using agents we don't think is the future. We feel like we're not doing our job then. But also, our user base will start to become selected not for, as it is today, the people that are building on the frontier, in the way of the frontier, but our user base will be selected for the laggers. And that will
Yeah.
make it even harder for us to change. So that is why we will be killing the AMP editor extension. Now, when will we be killing it? Well, it will self-destruct in about 60 days from
Yeah.
now. We
Maybe
don't
less.
know, maybe less. We don't know exactly when. We'll put the timer, you'll see it, it'll tell you. We don't know exactly what will replace it because, well, we are trying a lot of stuff. We think that there's something that's higher level that can work out, but we are confident that no matter what, we need to replace it. And we want to burn the boats. So
Yeah.
you've got some more time to keep using it. We really strongly encourage you in the meantime to switch to the AMP CLI. And if there are things where you switch to CLI, you really miss it from VS Code, let us know. We'd love to hear that feedback. And if anything, we need to hear that feedback because we want to keep you on the frontier with us. So that is the big news. And I know that a lot of you probably ask, well, couldn't we keep it around but not maintain it? Or could deprioritize it but keep it running, or
Yeah.
things like that. And it's just a focus thing for us. We can't do that without taking our eye off the thing that you all think is 100 times more important.
Yeah. I think it's important to say that maybe our sole purpose with AMP, we say like we want to let software builders harness the full power of artificial intelligence. And that means right now staying on the very edge of what's possible with artificial intelligence. And if you think about this as a frontier or a moving target, which it is, like these models change, there's new releases all the time, you got to keep up to figure out what the best possible thing is. And we're a small team, we cannot keep up while at the same time maintaining something that was the state of the art a year ago. Like, we got to keep moving fast. And one of our superpowers is that we're dogfooding the products all the time. We're shipping fixes in minutes when users report them. And if the whole team is, that's true, they've less and less do they use the VS Code extension, that superpower fades away. So we got to keep focusing on what the next thing is and not what the state of the art was.
Yeah. And if we went and hired another 10 people to support all of the things that we have killed, well, then we wouldn't be a small team
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
It's the wrong move, which gets us to the bigger picture thing here, which you touched on a bunch of times. I mean, we've said everything is changing so many times in 10 episodes, but right now, the way I think about it, and then we can talk about your CEO perspective on this, is the way I think about it is, imagine if the switch from personal computer to the internet to mobile happened in a year. You're like, oh, personal computer, so we got to do personal software, and we distribute it, shrink wrapped software, we distribute it to customers. Cool, I'm going to do this. And also I'm going to build a factory to shrink wrap software, and I'm going to build it, that burns CDs and DVDs and whatnot. And then 4 months later we have the internet, and now it's like, why should we shrink wrap software when they can type in www.myapp.com? Why should we do this? And then 6 months later, the mobile, the app store happens in mobile. And why make people go to this when they can download an app? And like, all of this is happening right now with software. And to give you like a really short, two condensed examples. One was, this was a few months back. So I think it was Jeffrey Litt who said, he tweeted something like, he was in a hotel gym and he wanted to do a workout. So he asked, I think back then it was Claude, and he's like, hey, Claude, I'm in a hotel gym. Here's like photos or something. Like, here's the equipment I have available. Make me a personalized workout plan. Now, if one of you has ever worked out, there's multiple apps where you can do this. You can say, generate me workout, and you type in the equipment and whatnot, and it generates something for you. But with Claude, you just send it photos and say, like, this is what I want to do, free text, and it comes back. And what Claude did in the web was it generated like a little HTML thing where you can check off reps and sets and whatnot. And I was like, okay, boom, emergent software UI. And we all know it's not super reproducible and has its limits. But then that's already something interesting to think about. But then I think it was Ryan Florence who, does he do Remix.js? Like he's big in the JavaScript world, I think. And he's like, oh, that's cool. Here's what I do. And he posted a video where he's in his home gym and he just used OpenAI's voice mode. And it's like, hey, ChatGPT, I'm here in this room. Walk me through a workout. And then ChatGPT was like, okay, I first want you to do one set. Let me know when you're ready. And he's like, I'm ready. Okay, go. Let me know when you're done with the set. And he's like, he does the set. And then he's like, I'm done with the set. And then ChatGPT was like, take a 60-second pause. And then he's like, I'm ready to go again. And everything disappeared. It was just the voice, So that's not
so
all
like,
of this
is that
software.
software?
Exactly. Is that software?
It is the computer guiding you through that workflow. Is that
exactly
software?
Is it software? But there's no code, is there? Like the code it's gone. And then the other anecdote here is, and multiple people have gone through it, is I thought, okay, I'm also going to set up the OpenClaw, CloudBot, MoldBot, the Pi Assistant. Like, I'm going to set this up for me and my wife so we can text it to manage our shopping list. And then I thought, why our shopping list in Todoist, a to-do application, a software as a service tool, like with many integrations. I thought, why do I need Todoist? Because the shopping list is usually 10, 15 items. The assistant can just write a text file somewhere and use that as memory or keep it in the context window. It'll be fine. But then I thought, yeah, but maybe if I want like a different view of the data that you can't do in a conversation. And I don't have answers here, but I'm saying all of this stuff is melting, and basically the whole premise of the last 20 years, to zoom out, of I'm going to find software with a market, with a customer base, and I'm going to find a niche, and then I'm going to sell to these customers, and then I'm going to scale it up. Like that was the playbook for most, find something that works in a given market, maybe take funding, take not, scale it up and make it bigger. Like that was the playbook for the last 20, 30 years. But now the market that you're selling to is changing every 3 or 4 or 6 weeks. So the only way to not die and get stuck is to constantly reinvent yourself. And that's that's what we're doing here. Like we built the VS Code extension, we shipped it, and now we're thinking it's the wrong market. Like it's holding us back. Like this stuff has moved on. We got to move with it. So that's my non-CEO opinion. But you have like a more CEO view of this you mentioned in our notes that sales team, right? Or MCP or business compliance. Like, how do you think about it?
Yeah. So yeah, Thorsten walked through why you got to be really humble and just prepare your company for change. And for us on AMP, we have 19 people. Every single person uses AMP. Every single person codes every single day. And there's a question of, AMP has been going really fast recently. Should we take that? Oh man, we've got magic in a bottle. Let's capture that. Let's take that product. Let's make it enterprise ready. Let's go hire a sales team. Let's go hire a marketing team. Let's go buy a Super Bowl ad. All those things. And that makes sense if a few assumptions hold. That makes sense if the product will still be competitive in a year without completely changing it. That makes sense if you can retain a customer with a high degree of certainty. That makes sense if you can train up a sales rep in a certain amount of time and their training won't become obsolete. Yeah. And there's so many other assumptions that rests on, and none of them hold right now, in particular when you're building a coding agent. And so everything we talk about needing to change and be willing to have good ideas be swept away by the models, it applies to all kinds of software, like weightlifting software and to-do software, but it applies even more for people building coding agents like us, because it is
Yeah.
the most competitive time and it is right on the frontier. It is so exposed in a really exciting way to technological progress. So when we look at every other person building a coding agent, every other company building a coding agent, one of our competitive advantages is we want to be the most radically on the frontier one. We want to be the fastest moving one. We want to be one that takes the biggest risks, that pushes our users and learns the most from our users when we're trying new things. We want to rip things out way faster than anyone else. We
Yeah.
want to carry less baggage than anyone else. And you can only do that if you make a lot of decisions, and you can't say, oh, okay, we'll leave the VS Code extension in because a lot of people like it. If you
Yeah.
start to allow things to slip, then everything falls apart. And it's you got to be paranoid all the time. So, one thing Thorsten has always said is have this mortal fear of just being disrupted by new tech or a new model or, something like that. And there's nothing sacred here. We are always vigilant.
Yeah. I mean, let's talk about Pi, Mario Zirkner's assistant or agent.
And OpenClaw, which I think is, you wonder, like, how did they make it? And it's a really good example because it is, in some ways, from a team size and structure point of view, even more extreme than AMP. So Mario Zirkner is awesome. He made Pi, which is like a general agent, and he made a coding agent on top of that has 4 very basic tools. It has a great plugin API, so you can extend it. And then ClaudeBot, and then MoltBot, and then OpenClaw was built on that, just showing the beauty and power of a general agent that's well done. You could, in theory, have given a lot of the same tools that like OpenClaw has to any coding agent or AMP or Claude Code. This was just such a simple agent. And Peter Steinberger made OpenClaw, and they are both people that have really strong opinions. They have incredibly strong, I think, constitutions and visions about what they want to build. They have a great degree of independence. They're not building it at some VC-backed company with a big sales team with quarterly targets to hit, with salespeople that are saying, oh man, we got to add this feature or else I'm not going to make this sale and I'm going to quit and all that. And those are the kinds of incentives that start to dull the product edge of a company, no matter how hard you try to avoid that, if you let that slip just a little bit. So I don't think it's a surprise that this incredible thing that took over the world, everywhere I go, I hear about it. Like I was at Stanford campus today, and every single person I talked to brought it up, and so many of them had used it. And I asked them questions to make sure they had actually used it, and they passed.
Yeah.
It couldn't have come from just a Google or a big company or something like that. It's also incredibly risky and irresponsible to use. The liability that a company would take on if they were to ship it is just so high. Yeah. And that is one extreme, and we want to be as close to that extreme as possible. And that just requires making these hard decisions, like killing the VS Code extension.
Yeah. And I mean, even those two, that's not it, right? Like, that's not the final. I guess they will both say this. They won't say like, yep, you'll be using OpenClaw 3 years from now. Like, none of them would say this.
I don't think they had any idea it would take off in the way that it did.
Yeah.
Either.
But even if, like, the situation we're in is every 2 to 6 months, and it's random, you get the rug pulled out from under you with something new. And when you know this is going to happen, and by now everybody should know this, are you going to sit down on the rug and put up your Lego pieces and and say like, this is what I'm building? Or do you want to keep the Lego pieces in your hands or in your pockets, knowing that the rug is going to be pulled and you got to jump on the next rug? And I think that's exactly what we're doing with AMP. And this is also to zoom out. Like yesterday, even people, like, let's zoom out. Cursor, they build an amazing business. They went to
like a
uh,
historically
his
incredible business, and
incredibly
also the brand,
record-breaking,
really smart people. And I think
incredible.
they're growing incredibly fast still.
Yeah, yeah, they
But
are. But now people are saying, guys, VS Code is holding you back. Like this is not it. Like you're being held back by being in the editor. And this is a year after I said on SourceGraph stage, like I think the editors that like I think that its days are numbered. And now the fastest growing startup in the history is being told you're being held back. And now you have Pi and OpenClaw with just Telegram interfaces and agents running autonomously somewhere else. And it just goes to show like this is a crazy, crazy, crazy time where you cannot rest on your laurels. And the whole point is like, where will the value accrue? Where
yeah,
will
and I don't
where
think Cursor is resting on its laurels either.
yeah, they are.
I, you
Yeah,
know, yeah,
I
and I know you
I
weren't
think it's
saying they
just a
were.
good example of um like basically this is straight from sales conversations from last year where people were saying oh, Cursor made Copilot look old, like it made it look outdated, and Copilot once was the king of the world. We can talk about what Microsoft did or didn't do, but they were the number one thing for a long time, and then Cursor made them look old. And then half a year later, Cloud Code, AMP, and agents made Cursor look old, and then they had to catch up. And now people are saying like, yeah, but the editor, like, is that still a thing? So now it all looks old, and we're starting to
Yeah,
figure stuff out.
yeah.
It's
And the
wild.
humbling lesson is, as soon as you see the trend going in a
Yeah,
certain direction, it
yeah,
goes way faster than it ever went in the past, and it goes way faster than you think. And
yeah,
there have been a lot of people that are really good at a particular stop along the train of like AI
yeah,
change, and they're really
yeah,
good, and then they kind of stay there. And I can
yeah,
understand why they stay there, because they get a lot of praise. And turns out, the first day they talk about it, they're talking to the early adopters, and then 2
yeah,
months later, they're talking to 100 times more people, but it's not the early adopters anymore. They're on to a new thing. And
yeah,
we constantly just have this paranoia, and we want to be ahead. We want to keep all of you ahead,
yeah,
and we want to keep trying new and interesting things, because the last thing the world needs is like the 10th coding agent
yeah,
or the 20th coding agent that's
yeah.
doing the same thing.
I mean, practical example of this, I think half a year ago, let's say in summer, yeah, summer last year, there was all of this what was it called, the PRD driven, spec driven, like, well, this is the product, like you talk to it in this mode and you build up a spec, and then or a PRD, and then you have a PRD, and then you do this, and once you have the list of to-dos, then you feed the to-do file to this, and this is the product, like this is the thing. And then it turns out, with Opus or GPT-5 2, a lot of that stuff isn't that necessary. Like I do in my work with agents, I still do this, like analyze this and come up with a plan, but it's so far less structured than what people think. And I think if you had built that product where you hide the model and basically say like, click a button, like people were tempted or did this. They're like, click the button to build the spec, click the button to build to-do list from the spec, implement the to-dos. I think that just has to fall apart. And I think we've seen this with a lot of stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah,
All right. That brings us to another thing in AMP that we think is dead. It's dead, but long live it. It's Thorsten. I'll let you do the
yeah.
honors.
How do I say this in the clearest way? I think maybe I'll walk back on this, but I think right now that the time of manual context management is also coming to an end, where for the majority of last year, I've been saying that you need to be good at managing context management, like managing the context window. What do you put in? And then when do you create a new thread or conversation, refer back to the old one? That gave you a lot of good results But now I think especially with GPT-5 2, I think it leads to really good results, even if you don't do this. And then it just puts into question, like, why do all of this other stuff if you can get to the same results?
Yeah. And so, you mean the study of manual context management is you have a thread, it has a fixed size. And if you want to go beyond that, then you have
Yeah.
to hand off. And the abstraction that we originally had, that a lot of tools still have, of auto compaction, of making it seem like
Yeah.
you don't need to care about it, that
Yeah.
like that actually is viable now.
Yeah. I mean, our whole thing is to say, like, we changed our mind, right? So I think I said for a long time auto compaction does not work because it degrades, like signal gets lost, and that's the models get worse. But if you look at, for example, GPT-5 2 with its inclination to always research, and it's less trigger happy. If you just think about that, it's you have a long running thread, then you do auto compaction, and then GPT-5 2 goes, let me research, and then let's build up the other thing before I do something. Whereas Opus, it does something, you run out of context, you auto compact, and it goes, let me do the first thing that comes to mind and run this command. And it kind of is, that might lead to different results. And I think with GPT-5 2, we're seeing how, like, the auto compact way of hiding the context window is getting more and more viable. And if you look at ChatGPT and OpenAI and what customer base they have, I think it makes sense because Anthropic is less end consumer oriented, I would say, still. But ChatGPT never showed you the context window. Well, I think they started hiding it like 2 years ago. So I think the whole company is optimized for users expect us to have a single conversation on a single topic. And I myself, who knows what a context window is, have been guilty of this, where I have like one long running thread in ChatGPT over weeks. And in my mind, I'm like, what are they doing behind the scenes? Like, I know I can see it that the agent loses information from the start, but it still works really well for my use cases, which is track my workouts or whatever it is. And I think that's where the arrow is pointing. Like, it's not pointing at manual threat management. I'm not saying we are there yet, but it's where it's pointing.
Yeah. And we're not saying that you can just have one thread, you use it for everything. You still, and actually it's even more important to, when you start a thread, have a really clear idea of what you want and what the outcome should be.
Yeah.
And that's what it can, continue. But if you're doing two totally different things, then that calls for two different threads.
Yeah. I think of it as like a topic or a prompt or a task or something. And that's the thing that unifies a lot of this. And that you need to think about. And it's the same thing that everybody's been saying on the internet, like, well, turns out you can't give vague instructions to an engineer, like make this feature nicer. That just doesn't work. Like, people will do whatever they think is nice means. So you got to put effort into the first prompt. But then it can be really impressive.
Yeah.
So again,
So,
like, stuff is changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we're going to figure out how we can change the concepts of a thread. And is there something above a thread that is actually a group of threads, maybe that's tied to a certain repo and branch and commit, or that has a theme or something like that? And what does that look like? And that's pretty fun to explore. And going back to some of the other decisions we made around, like, we're going to kill the editor extension.
Yeah.
That makes it easier for us to explore things like a new concept of threads.
Yeah.
Not having support for 17 different models means that we can explore what models are good at auto compaction and support it for 2 models, and maybe even have a mode that is used in a different way. Maybe Opus 4.5 and Smart Mode will actually become interactive mode, and it won't work like this. And it'll be for when you're in there with a scalpel.
Yeah.
We have so much more freedom to explore that because of all the other times we've said no, and because of the other things that we've killed. So With that said, I
Yeah.
do want to just say thank you to AMP users for coming along on this ride with us.
Yeah.
It is bumpy, it's exciting, it's not easy, and there's a lot to
Yeah.
learn, and also for sharing all your feedback so we can make better decisions.
Yeah, it's worth saying out loud again, like how much we appreciate it, and we have, in some sense, like yes, we're a successful business, we're making money, we're numbers are really good, and we have customers, and yet there's an aspect to AMP that makes it more like an art installation than a software company, where we're like, I said this to you like 2 days ago. I'm like, what if AMP itself self-destructs? Like, what if, basically we're saying like, well, AMP is gone. Here's the new AMP. Like the construction and destruction of AMP, like we joked about this. But the funny thing is, our customers appreciate this. They come to us and they say, guys, what's the next thing? Like, how can we help? Like, should we share with you what we're seeing, what we're learning, and then please, like, what's the next thing? And when we ripped out in January, we ripped out 4 features or something. We ripped out to-dos, we ripped out forking, we ripped out AMP tab. Can't remember what the fourth one
Custom
was.
commands. I was
Custom
not
commands.
actually going to post the news post when we slashed custom commands.
Yeah, where we slashed
because I'm like,
them.
oh, people won't care about this, and it's yet another removal. But we did, and people actually really like it when we remove stuff.
Yeah. And people were like, this is good. Cut the stuff that we all know doesn't work anymore. They were appreciative. And the customers that pay us money say this to us. They're like, yep, I stopped using this, or cool,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I will now stop using this. You guys, thank you for making the call here.
Yeah.
And
there are a bunch of people in the replies when we removed custom commands who said, oh, well, actually, I prefer it this way. Claude Code does it this way or whatever. And I asked them, well, do you use AMP or you using Claude Code? And they're like, oh, no, I use Claude Code. And in my mind, if we haven't won them over by having near parity on that particular feature to AMP already, how are we going to win them over if we just make it even more like Claude Code? We need to be doing different things. And yeah, to your point about the self-destruction of everything we do, we all believe deeply that all the usage of AMP today, all the revenue that we're doing, all the customers we have to totally re-earn that. Like every 3 months, the product is going to look different. You're going to use it for different things in different ways. You're going to pay us for different things, and we need to figure that out. And if we don't, 3 months from now, we're going to have a really obsolete product. Or maybe it'll be winning in the laggard market, and we'll get a lot of money for a year, and then we'll be stuck, with nothing. And we don't want to do that. And that's what motivates us. That's what we truly feel inside. So we are like an art installation in many ways, and you are part of it. And we are the kind of company, because of this unique history where we spun off from SourceGraph. We are 19 co-founders of AMP. We've worked together. We trust each other a lot. We're all experienced. We're all opting in for this. We haven't had to go and hire external people and say, oh, it's going to be so stable or whatever. We all know we've signed up for it. There's no other company like that. And that lets us do crazy stuff. Actually, we might make it so we just delete this entire directory in our source tree, and we're getting together in Singapore in a few weeks and just rewrite it from scratch. We can do that kind of stuff. And that is so cool.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say is, because I guess instinctually you could say, well, if everything's changing and you need to rip out stuff, doesn't that mean you should take a step back and wait until you can see the big picture and, and then ship it or then build it, And I think a lot of big companies have this where they're like, well, we're going to sit this one out. This is too crazy for us. We're going to wait and see where the dice are going to fall, and then we're going to build for this. And sure, go ahead, you can do this. But I would argue, and I guess that's what we're doing, is you might be too far away from where the dice will fall. It's a bet. You can either say, I'm going to sit this one out and I'm going to catch up once the dice have fallen. Or like us, you need to constantly look up and see where they're going and trying to follow them. And you need to ship and hit reality and get customer feedback from customers such as ours to figure out what's going on, what's working and isn't working. So we, like we said, like we're researching, we think shipping is research. We ship to figure out what works and doesn't work and to help our customers, and we learn from the customer feedback. But we're not going to sit there and say, well, we can't ship this feature because we're not 100% sure that it'll survive the next 3 months. Like, that's not how you do things. You got to put it out there and see for yourself and with your customers what it works or doesn't work.
Yeah, well said. We are
Yeah.
not the ones to sit these things out.
All right, we're at time, I would say, right? This was a lot of change in one episode. Any last words we want to send along to our users?
Think happy coding.
Happy hacking, yeah. We'll talk to you. Bye-bye.
Bye.